The IRA officer in charge was Brigade Commander Tom Hales, greatly admired by Collins. During the Black and Tan times, Hales had been captured and tortured. He's photographed here at Bandon Barracks with a companion who is being forced to wave a Union Jack flag. This second man never recovered mentally from his ill treatment. When Hales learned of Collins's appearance at Beal Na Blath, he immediately set about laying an ambush in case the big fellow should return by the same route. A beer bottle collection cart was commandeered and placed across the road on the Bandon side of the village. In front of this, a 12-inch long mine containing 7 pounds of gelignite was buried beneath the surface of the road and connected to a detonating plunger on higher ground. 22 riflemen were then placed in ambush positions overlooking the road to await a possible return of the convoy. Also unknown to Collins, Eamon de Valera had stayed overnight in this house close to Beal Na Blath. Although opposed to Collins, he had also been trying to stop the carnage of the Civil War. But the Commander-in-Chief of the IRA, General Liam Lynch, was reluctant to end hostilities, and he instructed his officers not to encourage de Valera in his efforts. Just over half an hour after Collins had passed through, de Valera came to Beal Na Blath. Despite gossip and malicious rumour, there's no evidence that he was involved in the planning of the ambush then being laid for his former friend and colleague. Collins, meanwhile, reached Bandon. He then travelled to Clonakilty for lunch and onwards to Rosscarbery and his old homestead at Sam's Cross to meet members of his family. The convoy stopped at the local pub. Collins told a local officer that he was going to put an end to this bloody war. At Skibbereen, he had yet more talks at the Eldon Hotel. He's pictured leaving there at 5 o'clock that afternoon to return to Bandon for tea. One of the officers he met at Bandon was his great friend, John L. Sullivan.
I remember him saying to me clearly that I'm down to finish the Civil War.
What did he mean by that?
Now, that's a question I can't answer, but what I thought he meant was that he was meeting somebody from the other side probably to try and finish the fighting.
Collins also had detailed talks with the local Free State commander, Major General Sean Hales. 8 miles away, Hales's brother Tom, fighting on the other side, was meeting fellow IRA officers at Beal Na Blath. After tea in Lee's Hotel, now the Munster Arms, Collins, Dalton and the rest of the convoy set off for Cork via Beal Na Blath. This was the last photograph taken of Collins alive. Meanwhile, at Beal Na Blath, Tom Hales had sent most of his ambush party back to Long's public house, believing, because of the late hour, that Collins was not now going to return to Cork through the village. He helped a party of 6 or 7 men to disconnect the mine and clear away the roadblock. A lookout was posted in the laneway overlooking the road in case any Free State troops should appear. Collins's convoy, meantime, was heading towards them. This model shows the ambush area, the convoy road at the bottom of the picture, the stream above that, and at the top the laneway used by the IRA. The area from left to right is about half a mile. Some witnesses said the barricade was at the bridge on the right, others that it was 100 yards beyond it, towards Beal Na Blath crossroads. As the convoy reached Beal Na Blath, it was just after 7 o'clock local time, 15 minutes to sunset. A light drizzle had begun to fall, a mist was drifting across distant fields. Collins huddled into the collar of his greatcoat. The drivers noticed that he and Dalton had lifted their rifles from the floor, a premonition perhaps. The IRA lookout, startled by the convoy, fired warning shots for his companions. Emmett Dalton shouted, "Drive like hell," but Collins yelled, "No, stop and we'll fight him." They jumped from the car and took up firing positions. Lieutenant Smith, meantime, raced on down the road, followed by the Crossley tender. At the barricade, the men had heard the shooting and scrambled up to higher ground for cover, firing at the approaching motorbike. One shot hit the handlebars. Smith turned the machine and drove it into the ditch, then waved frantic warnings to the men in the Crossley tender to take cover. The troops jumped out, and dividing into two sections, the first section ran to the barricade to move it aside. The second section gave them covering fire. The IRA men ran up the laneway in a series of sprints under constant fire from the Lewis gun and rifles below. As the barricade was cleared aside, some of the Free State troops moved after the IRA men, pushing them along the laneway towards Collins and the rest of the convoy at the other end of the battle area. At that end, the armoured car had now reversed a short distance to get into a better firing position on the men running along the lane. The bullets cut the grass at their feet. Commandant O'Connell and Lieutenant Smith made their way back from the barricade position to inform Dalton and Collins that the obstruction had now been cleared. But just as the IRA men were pinned down, the Vickers machine gun jammed. Lieutenant Goff, helping McPeak, had made a mess of loading an ammunition belt. The unexpected respite allowed some of the IRA men to begin moving along the laneway again. Collins saw their movement and ran from the cover of the ditch to the back of the armoured car to fire on them. Collins's next move was foolhardy and fatal. He left the protection of the Slieve na Món and moved back down the road. He fired some shots, and then, as he was opening the bolt to reload, there were still occasional bursts of fire from the IRA positions. Concerned about Collins, Dalton and the other officers ran, crouching, around the corner to find him. He was lying face down. There was a large gaping hole in the back of his head behind the right ear. There was increased firing now from the IRA. A bullet went cleanly through the neck of Lieutenant Smith. Commandant O'Connell whispered an act of contrition into Collins's ear, but the big fellow was already dead. Darkness was falling. The IRA now made their escape across country. Collins was lifted into the back of the touring car, his head resting on Dalton's shoulder, to begin the sorrowful journey to Cork City. Those, then, are the facts of Michael Collins's death. Or are they? After the shooting of Michael Collins at Beal Na Blath, the convoy made its way in darkness around obstacles of felled trees, trenches and blown bridges, and stopped at the railings outside this church. A priest was brought from the house across the road. He took one look at Collins and turned and walked away. In anger, one of the escort soldiers fired at the priest, but the rifle was thrown off target by Emmett Dalton.
Personally, I was holding the body of the Commander-in-Chief in my arms, and the rest of the cortege was moving ahead as best they could. And it was a sad, sad journey. When we arrived in the city of Cork, there was consternation at my headquarters. We had my doctor attached to my division was there, and he took charge of the body,
Collins's body was taken here to Shanakeel Hospital, a small privately owned establishment which held a contract with the British government to care for British soldiers. In an upstairs room, the body was washed and laid out. Emmett Dalton sent a telegraph to Army headquarters in Dublin reporting the death of the Commander-in-Chief. In Dublin, the Chief of Staff, Richard Mulcahy, sent a message to all troops to stand calmly at their posts and not engage in any kind of reprisals. The IRA Chief of Staff, Liam Lynch, sent a message of congratulations to his men involved in the fight at Beal Na Blath, although he regretted the loss of such men as Collins because of the Civil War.
I remember when I got word of his death, I had taken over Dunmanway with Hales. And it was 2 days after he died, he was killed, that we got word that he was dead. And I'll never forget hearing it. It came down the street and people stopped. They never put it, once they heard it, they just stopped on their tracks and put their head down. Whether they were friends or supporters or enemies, meant nothing. Collins was dead, the man that couldn't be killed. And it hit everyone.
When news came through to IRA men held in Kilmainham jail in Dublin, 1,000 of them knelt in prayer for the man who had once led them. This unprompted demonstration of respect would be repeated in jails up and down the country, a country stunned into almost disbelief. Collins was taken by ship to Dublin and laid out first in the old St. Vincent's Hospital. Among those who visited the mortuary was Lady Hazel Lavery. When the body was taken to City Hall for the official lying in state, tens of thousands queued to pay their respects, including British soldiers who less than a year previously had searched the country for this man.